Hey, everybody, welcome to Real Mob Stories. This is your host, James Proctor. Today, we're going to dissect a very fascinating video that RJ Roger and Mikey Scars put out today on their channel, on their YouTube channel, where they talk about a recent video that OC Shortz put out where he discusses Mikey Scars wearing a wire and recording a conversation with Frank Cali. According to Mikey Scars, the recording took place in 2002, and it had no bearing on Frank Cali's legal case in 2008. In addition, the implication of the video Mikey and RJ did today is that OC Shortz is being controlled by Sammy Gravano. So we're going to discuss that. We'll answer the question if OC Shortz was doing a hit job on Mikey Scars. Also, we'll discuss the actual transcript that was brought up regarding the Frank Cali case as well. As a content creator focused on history, what's the responsibility for putting out information based on facts? Finally, when it comes to people like Sammy Gravano and Mikey Scars, why are they out here on social media? Why are they putting out stories? Does Sammy and Michael have an agenda? There's a lot to cover on this, and I want to give you my thoughts. If you haven't already, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to Real Mob Stories with James Proctor. Without further delay, on to our feature presentation. So today I'm just going to do this impromptu. I'm not doing any notes. It's unscripted. So I just really wanted to get this out in my own words, give you my thoughts on what's going on, because it is interesting, as a content creator. I have to think about what I put out there. I have to consider what is the content that you guys want to hear. I like history. I like to talk about things that people haven't discussed before. But at the same time, I know that some stuff you guys aren't interested in. Also, what is it when we bring on guests? What do we need? What's our responsibility when we bring on someone? What are the questions we need to ask? So there's a lot involved when we think about it. And so I think it is an interesting and relevant story that's out there. So for the past few months, Sammy Gravano's been doing this show with OC Shortz. And in my opinion, this is Sammy's way of trying to legitimize his story. Sammy's been caught in lie after lie after lie. He's not credible. He's an excellent storyteller, but he's not the person you want to go to if you're looking for a factual history of the American mafia. So Sammy's trying to leave a legacy, in my opinion, and that's the reason he's on YouTube. But I guess more than that, this is his way to make money as well. He was in prison for nearly 20 years. He comes out of prison with no money. We know that he was actually given a couple of $1,000s by John A. Light back in 2017. Sammy doesn't want to admit the help that he got from A. Light. Sammy can be charming, but he's also a controlling and angry man. And it's obvious with all the threats he does when people disagree with him. I've been threatened. Lee's been threatened. Mikey's been threatened. A lot of people have been threatened by Sammy Gravano. He thinks he's still this Billy Badass that's part of the mob. He's not. He's been out since he ratted in 1991. So let's talk about James with OC Shortz. I have always liked the guy. And you know that I did a show where I talked about the different content creators. I think James is a man. He's intelligent. He goes into the history. He does a good job of researching organized crime, in my opinion. So why would he risk his good name and his credibility to do this ongoing series of shows with Sammy Gravano? Is he looking for views? Is he looking for more money? What is it that he's looking for? I can't answer that for him, but it's obvious, though, in my opinion, that he thinks he can uncover new things in that life that hasn't been shared before. Sammy lived through the John Gotti era. He was around some of the more interesting parts of Cosa Nostra in the 1970s and 80s. And even me, one time I tried to I reached out to Sammy and asked him about this murder of Jack. And, he's willing to give me the story. But then when I talked to Lee and other people, the problem was that would I get the truth from him? Mikey Scars was actually involved in that hit, and Sammy said that wasn't true. We have evidence, we have the transcripts, we've got documentation. I have it from Mikey Scars' own words that he was there and part of it. And Sammy didn't want to accept that fact. And so how am I going to get the truth from Sammy Gravano? So that's the problem that OC Shortz is looking at. Will he be able to get the truth? And it sounds like that he is allowing Sammy to dictate and say things that aren't true, even though OC Shortz knows better. So do I think that doing the show with Sammy Gravano has hurt OC Short's credibility? Well, based on what I'm seeing, unfortunately, yes. You see, Sammy's motivated to change history, and he sees these shows like the one about Mikey Scars recording Frank Cali. Yes, he did record it, but as we'll talk about a little later, you need to get the full context of what happened before you throw that out. Nothing wrong with throwing that out because that is part of history, but the problem was the context of it wasn't brought up correctly. So, I do have one thing that I think's ironic. I'm not doing this to criticize RJ or OC Shortz, but RJ and Mike, you're saying that OC Shortz is being controlled by Sammy, but couldn't people say the same thing about what RJ is doing, having the show with Mikey Scars? I mean, people could say the same thing. So, I mean, I don't know if that's a good argument to use because, RJ and Mikey are kind of in this show and bond together, just like OC Shortz and Sammy. So obviously there's positives of doing a show with someone like Mikey and Sammy. RJ has been very successful with that. They have, a great presence on Patreon. They have a paid audience, 1,000 people or whatever. So they're getting a lot of money through doing this show together. And I'm sure that OC Shortz is getting a lot of views and YouTube revenue from doing this show with Sammy Gravano. But at the same time, there's a lot of negatives of doing a show like that, because I think when you hit your wagon to someone, are you still able to be objective? And that's tough because, you start to develop a relationship with the person and all of that. And are you going to be able to be objective? It's kind of funny that I don't even do a show with Angel Gotti. I get accused of doing what she wants. That, any show that I do, I have to clear it by her or whatever. And that's so stupid because I've done so many shows on here that she doesn't like, and she has told me, but she has never told me who I can have on, what I can talk about, anything like that. But, some people will say that, and I don't even have her on the show. So anyway, I do think, though, that you have to look at the optics of it. And, I think that it can be a bad look. So anyway, so we have this 2002 recording of Frank Cali. So this is Mikey Scars, and what he's recording a conversation with Frank Cali. And so we'll go ahead and read what's said here. And I think this part here is the more relevant part. So this is something that was brought up by OC Shortz in his show, and this was also brought up by Mikey Scars. So DeLeonardo replies, yeah, where'd they put him? Cali says they put him the administration, referring to the administration of the Gambino family. And DeLeonardo says, that's the move? That's this little JoJo? Referring to Jojo Corazzo. And Cali says, and Then D. Leonardo says, I've got some advice for you. Run for the fucking hills. These guys are bad guys, Frank. Yeah, now I see the move. So, when you look at what's being said there, the only information that's caught on tape is talking about someone that's in the administration. And so, they're not talking about Johnny Rizzo or anything like that. Who they're referring to is Jojo Corazzo. And we know that JoJo was part of the administration, in the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, we know that. And so this is what they're referring to. And so this, like I said, this is 2002. Frank Cali doesn't get pinched until 2008. And so we'll talk about what he got pinched for in 2008. But what was recorded here was pretty irrelevant when it came to anyone being arrested, anyone being pinched, anything like that. So, it was implied in O.C. Shortz show that, this led to Frank Cali getting picked up. So Johnny Rizzo was never an acting capo. In fact, Johnny Rizzo was not moved up to acting capo at this point. In fact, what we know is that Mikey Scars, didn't think that Johnny Rizzo should be in that role, and the guy was bumped down, and Frank Cali was the one that was made an acting capo. So nothing came out of the wiretap of Frank Cali. And so then 6 years later, then you have Frank Cali being indicted. And so where all this comes from is what they call Operation Old Bridge. And there was a guy named Joseph Valero, and he was wearing a wire. He was the main witness that led to Cali and 60 something other associates and soldiers getting arrested and charged with racketeering. And what was happening is that apparently they're saying that Cali and then Lenny DiMaria was extorting from this guy Joseph Valero. And Valero was owned a trucking company. They were actually at the point NASCAR was trying to build a speedway out on Staten Island, and what they said is that Valero was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to several folks within the Gambino family. Jackie D'Amico was mentioned in this. Nicky Corazzo, Lenny DiMaria, Frank Cali. And so what ended up happening was in 2004, Valero became an informant. He had a big coke problem. He was a cokehead, and he didn't want to go to prison. So he agreed to become an informant. And this thing lasted for 4 years, where he was, recording conversations. And in February of 2008, this is when Cali and the rest of these guys were arrested. This was the whole Operation Old Bridge. And, one of the things that was talked about that I thought was interesting about Old Bridge was that with Frank Cali, he was helping to establish relationships again between the Gambino family and the Inzerillos in Sicily. That what had happened was, you remember there was a war in the 90s and 80s and 90s where the Inzerillos basically they either had to come to the United States or they were killed. They lost everything for the most part in the war. And so anyway, a lot of the Sicilian connections that are these Sicilian mobsters that was going up against the Inzerillo family, they ended up in prison. And so the Inzerillos were trying to reestablish a foothold in Sicily. And at the same time, they were trying to tie the relationship that they had once had with the Gambino family, and doing that through Frank Cali. So anyway, Cali had gotten charged with racketeering, extortion, conspiracy. Also, Jackie Nodes got, charged at the same time, and this guy, Di Maria. And finally, a few months later, in June of 2008, Cali pled guilty to a charge of extorting money from Valero. And basically he got 10 months of jail time. And I believe he served all this time there in Brooklyn at the MDC. He didn't even have to go to a federal prison. And so everything related to Operation Obridge had nothing to do with Mikey Scars. It had to do with this guy Valero. And so, you can't tie this transcript here with what happened to Frank Cali getting convicted of extortion in 2008, which was 6 years later. So, that is the whole essence of this. And so personally, really, we can just conclude with this. Personally, I want to get the history right. I don't do a show with another mob guy. Like I said, it's human nature that when you do that, it's harder to be objective. And, I will be putting out a show probably tomorrow or Monday, and it's about Billy Batts. And this is a case of history where we've been lied to. And I have a lot to uncover on this, because I don't think any of us know who the real Billy Batts was. He was made into something that he was not. And so I have the real story of who Billy Batts is, and not the story that we were given by Henry Hill. The reason that I think that RJ and Mikey are upset with OC Shortz is that RJ talks about the respect he has for OC Shortz, but now he feels like that OC Shortz is getting involved in some shady shit. And the problem that RJ has is that OC Shortz could have contacted him, and they could have talked about the transcripts and everything. Mikey Scar said that he would have been willing to, try to bring some context to that wiretap. And, I do think that's a good idea. I think if you're going to do a show about someone, it makes a lot of sense to try to contact a person, see if they can give some context to what's going on. And, make sure people are aware. No one likes to be surprised. So what's next is I'll be doing the deep dive on Billy Batts, hopefully tomorrow, Monday. I've got an interview that's coming out. It's probably going to be towards the end of next week. I've already done the interview, but I'm trying to work with the guy that I interviewed on the timing of releasing it. So it'll probably be towards the end of next week, but I think it'll be something that all of you will enjoy. So in conclusion, it's our responsibility to uncover facts and put out the truth. And for me, I personally stay away from people like Sammy Gravano, because I know I'm not going to get the truth. And, most of these guys on here have an agenda. Even Mikey Scar's got an agenda. So don't forget about that. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think that OC Shortz is making a bad move aligned with Sammy Gravano? Does Sammy and even Mikey Scars have an agenda for being out here on social media telling their story? And why do you think that Sammy Gravano is telling his story through OC Shortz? Also, please don't forget to hit that like button. And I'd love to have you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. With that said, Hope everyone has a great week ahead. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and God bless you always.